I get it when a friend mentions they need a UPS, the first thing they say is, I don't want to waste money on something that sits idle most of the time or, worse, fails when I need it most. You're weighing the risk of a dead server room against the cost of a unit that might be overkill for a single rack. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, and I'm here to break down whether the Vertiv Liebert PSI 51500 RM1201 actually lives up to the hype or if you'd be better off scrolling past. First off, let's talk about what this thing is trying to solve. In a typical small to medium data center or a dedicated server closet, you've got a handful of critical devices, maybe a couple of blade servers, a network switch, and a storage appliance. All of those need clean, uninterrupted power, especially when the building's main breaker trips or you get a nasty voltage dip. A UPS in a 1U form factor, like the Vertiv Liebert, promises to slot right into your existing rack without eating up precious vertical space. That's the first big win for anyone who's already fighting for room in a crowded 42U rack. But space isn't everything. The real question is whether the unit can actually protect the gear you care about, and that's where the power factor and AVR, automatic voltage regulation, come in. A high power factor means the UPS can draw power more efficiently from the wall, which translates into lower operating costs and less heat. The AVR does the quiet work of smoothing out those small voltage fluctuations that would otherwise cause the batteries to discharge faster. If you've ever watched a UPS fan spin up like a jet engine every time a UPS-powered server rebooted, you'll appreciate a model that keeps its internal temperature in check. In practice, owners have reported that the Liebert's AVR handles the typical office building sags without constantly dipping into battery mode, which extends the life of those battery packs. Now, let's get into the day-to-day reality of setting this up. Because it's a 1U unit, you'll need to make sure the rack's rear panel has enough clearance for the airflow. The unit pulls cool air from the front and exhausts out the back, so you can't just jam it against a wall of other equipment without a bit of breathing room. In my own test rig, I left at least an inch of space between the UPS and the adjacent switch, and the temperature stayed well below the 40°C threshold that manufacturers warn about. That's a practical tip. Plan a little extra clearance when you design your rack layout, otherwise you might find the UPS throttling its output just because it's overheating. Remote management is another feature that often feels like a buzzword until you actually need it. The Liebert ships with a network interface that talks to the Vertiv's PowerIQ software, letting you monitor load, battery health, and event logs from a laptop or even a smartphone. For a small IT team, that means you don't have to climb the rack every time a battery warning pops up. In real use, you can set up email alerts for when the battery reaches 20% capacity, giving you a heads up before anything critical shuts down. If you're running a handful of servers that don't need constant human oversight, this remote capability can save you a lot of late-night trips to the server room. Programmable outlets might sound like a niche gimmick, but they become handy when you have mixed devices with different shutdown requirements. The Liebert lets you assign which outlets stay on during a power event and which ones are cut off after a preset delay. In practice, I used this to keep my network switch alive for the full 10-minute battery runtime while letting a non-essential test workstation shut down after 5 minutes. That way, the essential traffic stayed up longer, and I preserved battery life for the devices that truly mattered. So, who should actually consider buying this UPS? If you have a small rack, think 2 to 4U of critical gear running 120V equipment, and you need a solution that fits without adding an extra rack unit, the Liebert PSI 51500 RM1201 is a solid match. Its 1440 VA rating is enough to handle a typical server, a switch, and a storage node at moderate loads, and the high power factor keeps your electricity bill from ballooning. The remote management and programmable outlets add a layer of control that you'd normally only find in higher-priced, larger units. On the flip side, if you're looking to protect a whole floor of equipment or you need more than 10 minutes of runtime under full load, this UPS will feel cramped. Its battery capacity, while decent for its size, won't keep a heavy load rack humming for long. Also, because it's a 1U design, you lose the luxury of internal redundancy. You get a single power module, so if that module fails, the whole unit is out. For enterprises that demand N+1 redundancy, you'd be better off stepping up to a larger, dual-module system. Another hidden trade-off is the